Welcome to the Cat Lodge and another episode of the Cats Review. I am your host, Solomon, and today the cats and I are having a look at the Kong Purrsuit Whirlwind, which is basically a battery-powered ball that moves in random patterns across the floor while whipping its wonderfully yellow tail around in a whirlwind fashion. Let's check it out. With the Kong Purrsuit Whirlwind purchase, you would get some fancy packaging, the purple ball, a wonderfully yellow tail, and some included batteries. Woohoo! It's not often you see them. Now the assembly of this thing is pretty straightforward. Here we go. And you're done. This little button here is the on and off switch. But before handing the toy over to the cats, let's have a quick glance at the promised features as they are written in the description. We have auto timer that stops toy after 15 minutes to save battery. Alright, that sounds like a good thing. We'll check if that works as intended. Uniquely designed to bump out of corners. Oh yeah, I'll put that one to the test. Quietly glides, inviting chase and capture fun. Now, this part of the description was actually what made me buy the toy in the first place. If you've seen our previous reviews, you might remember that Danzig is very sensitive to sounds, so an automatic toy that quietly glides I thought sounded really interesting and might be a perfect fit. But we'll see. Without further ado, over to the cats. Well, hold on, Danzig, is that it? Oh, okay, I guess. Sultan, you're up. Alright, the cats have given us their first impressions of the Purrsuit Whirlwind, and their opinions couldn't be more polarizing. Danzig pretty much completely ignored the toy, while Sultan had an absolute blast. As usual, we did our longevity test, where this time the cats got to play with the toy for 2 weeks, just to see if their opinions changed over time, for better or worse. And the simple answer is, no, they didn't. Danzig just wouldn't go near the whirlwind, ever. Not even for a little curious sniff. But honestly, I don't think the sound was solely to blame here, but rather a combination of the rapid movement of the tail, the size of the ball, and yeah, the toy is not completely quiet either, but we'll get to that in a moment. Basically, there was simply too much excitement for Danzig. So, I'm afraid, Danzig gives the Purrsuit Whirlwind a score of 1 paw out of 5 possible. Too bad. But on the other hand, Sultan's opinion also remained unchanged after 2 weeks. In fact, this toy is now the new absolute favorite. Not only do the play sessions last longer than with any other toy I've seen, lasting as long as 45 minutes. But when the Pursuit Whirlwind is turned off, Sultan just loves carrying it around, or rather dragging it around the whole flat. It's incredibly cute. And do you know what this means? We have our very first 5 paws out of 5 possible. Awesome! Now, approaching this from a human perspective, we'll start by checking the checklist of promised features and see if the Whirlwind performed as advertised. 15 minutes timer, check. That worked as intended. Uniquely designed to bump out of corners. Well, during the play sessions we had no problems with it getting stuck, but just to confirm, I also put it to the test and bullied it a bit by pushing the Whirlwind into some tricky corners. As you can see, it performed incredibly well. However, it's important to note that while the Whirlwind can handle corners, it's not so good with carpets. If it happens to get knocked onto one, that is. It does still continue to spin, so it's not completely game over, I guess. And now, to the final point on the checklist. Quietly glides. Those 2 magic words that made me buy the Whirlwind in the first place. As I said before, the sound was probably not what put Danzig off the toy. And since the definition of quietly is highly subjective, I thought I'd give you a comparison so that if you have a cat that is sensitive to sound, you can get an idea what level of noise we're talking about here. The Pursuit Whirlwind is a buzzing toy, so I just compared it to a couple of other buzzing items. Let's have a listen. As you could hear, the Pursuit Whirlwind was actually the most quiet of the 3. It could perhaps be designed to make even less noise, but I think saying that it quietly glides is definitely not misleading. So I'm gonna give you a check mark for that, Kong. Aren't I nice? In terms of quality, both the ball and the wonderfully yellow tail leave nothing to be desired. The ball is solid with no rattling parts, and the tail is of a very soft, fuzzy material with a strong plastic stem. Once attached, it takes considerable force to remove, so it certainly won't come off during play. The only problem I have with the tail, and I've also seen a customer review with the same problem, is that if and when it breaks through wear and tear or violent chewing, there are no replacement tails to be found, meaning that you have to buy the whole toy, ball and all, once more, which I think is a huge oversight on Kong's part. Now, I'm not saying that the tail is of bad quality, but it is the part of the toy that will take the most beating, and should therefore be replaceable. At least in my opinion. Now, the big question is, of course, will this toy suit your cat? I believe if you have a cat like Danzig, who is timid, sensitive to noise and sudden movements, and maybe stays away when there's a lot of activity around, then the Pursuit Whirlwind is probably not a good choice. Otherwise, I'd say give it a go. Unless you got a lot of carpets. It's a good quality toy at a reasonable price, and Sultan absolutely loves it. Of course, all cats are different. So, if you try this thing out, or if you already got one, I would love to know what your cat thought in the comments below. That's all we have for you today. Thank you ever so much for tuning in, and we'll see you in our next review where 4 cats and a kitten get their paws on a dancing fish.